This illustration from 1876 shows one of the most important and dangerous encounters in American history. It represents a convergence of cultures, but also a threat of war that is usually overlooked. On the right, Mayflower Pilgrims look on with nervous expectation at the stranger who just walked into Plymouth Colony. He is a tall, strongly built, and almost naked man, possibly from one of the tribes they have exchanged gunfire with, or been watched and harassed by for their first winter in the New World. Pilgrim leaders look on as well, while one of them clutches his sword in anticipation of what might happen. What this illustration misses are the visitors' weapons and the implied threat that may have come with them. William Bradford, the future governor of the colony, later wrote about what he witnessed that day, as published in the book of Plymouth Plantation, and dramatized in the 2015 miniseries Saints and Strangers. The Indians came skulking about them, meaning the Pilgrims, and would sometimes show themselves aloof off. But when any approached near them, they would run away. But about the 16th of March, a certain Indian came boldly amongst them and spoke to them in broken English, which they could well understand, but marveled at it. At length they understood by discourse with him that he was not of these parts, but belonged to the eastern parts where some English ships came to fish, with whom he was acquainted, and could name sundry of them by their names, amongst whom he had got his language. He became profitable to them in acquainting them with many things concerning the state of the country in the east parts where he lived, as also of the people here, of their names, number, and strength, of their situation and distance from this place, and who was chief amongst them. His name was Samoset. Being, after some time of entertainment and gifts, dismissed, a while after he came again, and 5 more with him, and made way for the coming of their great sachem, called Massasoit, with whom, after friendly entertainment and some gifts given him, they made a peace with him. And so began peaceful relations between the local Wampanoag tribe and the Mayflower Pilgrims. But was peace always the expected outcome of that first visit? More information is added in this modern reprinting of the 1622 book Mourt's Relation, which was written by 2 former governors of Plymouth Colony, and dramatized in the History Channel's 2006 documentary Desperate Crossing, The Untold Story of the Mayflower. Friday, the 16th, a fair warm day. This morning we determined to conclude of the military orders, which we had began to consider of before, but were interrupted by the savages, as we mentioned formerly. And whilst we were busied hereabout, we were interrupted again, for there presented himself a savage, which caused an alarm. He very boldly came all alone, and along the houses straight to the rendezvous, where we intercepted him, not suffering him to go on, as undoubtedly he would, out of his boldness. He saluted us in English, and bade us welcome, for he had learned some broken English amongst the Englishmen that came to fish at Monchigon. The wind beginning to rife a little, we cast a horseman's coat about him, for he was stark naked, only a leather about his waist. He had bow and 2 arrows, the one headed and the other unheaded. We'll get back to these arrows soon. He was a tall, straight man, the hair of his head black, long behind, only short before, none on his face at all. He asked for some beer, but we gave him strong water, and biscuit, and butter, and cheese, and pudding, and a piece of mallard, all of which he liked well, and had been acquainted with such amongst the English. So what was the significance of those 2 arrows? This first meeting is examined more closely in the 2006 book Mayflower, A Story of Courage, Community, and War. Samoset was armed with a bow and 2 arrows, the one headed, the other unheaded. The Pilgrims do not seem to have attached any special significance to them, but the arrows may have represented the alternatives of war and peace. In any event, they soon began to warm to their impetuous guest and offered him something to eat. He immediately requested beer. Why would Samoset, and the men who sent him, make an offer of war or peace? Saints and Strangers does a good job of showing native suspicions about the new settlement in their territory. When Samoset makes his report to Chief Massasoit, and the chief debates how to handle the problem. Samoset even recommends an immediate attack on Plymouth Colony, if there is to be an attack. Though there is no evidence this conversation happened. The miniseries also shows the threat of war between native tribes, especially the threat to the Wampanoag tribe by the stronger Narragansett tribe, which inspired the future alliance between Chief Massasoit and the Pilgrims. There is a big difference between saying, "Are you here for peace or war?" and demanding a choice between peace and war. But would Samoset have recommended an attack if the question had not been answered, or the choice had not yet been made? We may never know, because both sides chose peace and created an alliance that lasted for a generation. Aside from one small exception, there are only a few references I found to the two arrows. They're not in the 1876 book, A Popular History of the United States, or its illustration, with which we started this discussion. They're not in the 1900 book, History of King Philip, with its own description and illustration of Samoset's first visit. They're not in this illustration from the 1903 book, Young Folks' History of the United States, or in this 19th century illustration. And the 2005 cartoon, William Bradford, Inspiring Animated Heroes, made no mention of the potential threat, showing Samoset as friendly and cheerful, just as William Bradford's original description suggested. Meanwhile, American history has judged Samoset kindly and with great appreciation, including in this 1910 booklet, Samoset, An Appreciation, which ironically is an excerpt from Volume 2 of the 1910 book series, Indian Wars of New England. No character of Aboriginal New England can be likened to Samoset. Like a mountain peak outlined against the dawn, he stands the one great exponent of the Abenaki race. His memory is the sweet breath of the woods, the song of the birds, and all the harmonies in nature. This praise and some history goes on for a dozen more pages, but did you see what he's carrying? One headed and the other unheaded. Plus, the back cover of the booklet shows a bow and two arrows. One headed and the other unheaded. Some people may disagree with me in these modern times, but I'm glad the Mayflower Pilgrims chose the unheaded arrow. Thank you for watching. Please like this video and see links in the description below to watch Saints and Strangers and read Mayflower, a story of courage, community, and war.